us anxious folk. My name is Lauren and I am happy to be back. I haven't recorded a solo episode in a little while. As a lot of you know, book launch is impending and I've been working pretty hard on all that sort of stuff. And on that note, I recently went and did some photos for publication. So did a little photo shoot with this beautiful, beautiful woman, and I was really nervous. I was really nervous on the day. I was fine in the morning, but I think my body was nervous, but like in my mind I was like, no, I'm fine. And then it all sort of hit me at once just before I went to leave. So I was saying to Anthony before I left, like, should I go? Should I ring and cancel? Should I do a different day? And he's like, just go. Like, honestly, just go. And the thing was, I knew I was overthinking, but sometimes it just happens. It just happens and you can't really do anything about it. But I was aware of it, which is why I said to him, what should I do? Because I knew he would be the voice of reason, I guess. But so I got in my car, I went to drive there, and she, the photographer, lived quite a distance away, so it was a big drive. And so I put on a Claire Weeks audio because, again, I really wanted that sort of no-nonsense approach because I knew that I was spiraling, I knew that I was overthinking, and I just needed someone to tell it how it is, and it helped so much. I was able to get there. I had a really great day. The point of this episode is that I was listening to that Claire Weeks audio in the car and it was helping so much. And then a couple of days later, I'm doing a session with one of my mentoring students and she starts talking about Claire Weeks and how helpful Claire Weeks has been for her. And then I'm listening to a podcast a few days later and they start talking about Claire Weeks. And you know those times where like different people mention the same thing in different contexts and you're like, okay, so there's something here. So I put on a Claire Weeks audio the other night and I was listening to her again. And if you don't know who Claire Weeks is, by the way, I'm going to assume you do because you're listening to this podcast. So you're obviously someone who deals with anxiety. But if you've never heard of Claire Weeks, I really recommend you go check her out. She's an author. You could find her videos on YouTube. She's passed away now, but she was an Australian physician, really famous for her work that she did with anxiety and panic and nervous illness, as she called it, or nervous suffering. She experienced panic and anxiety herself, and she just has the most beautiful approach for dealing with it. It's so validating because she doesn't dull it down. She doesn't... she simplifies it, but not in a way that takes away from the intensity of the feelings that you have and the emotions that you have about it. And she acknowledges even the really dark stuff. But she gives you really wonderful ways to work through it. She talks about cure, and I want to specify that cure, as Claire Weeks puts it, is very similar to how I feel about it, in that it's not that you never experience panic and anxiety again, because those are normal human emotions, but it's more that when you do experience those emotions, you don't run from them necessarily, or you don't feel them so intensely and want to repress them and run from them and try to avoid feeling them. You're just sort of able to float through your human life, having all the human emotions and not trying to sort of take away from any of them. So yeah, go check out Claire Weeks' work. I will link it in the show notes. Very old, so some of the music is quite like jaunty and some of the language used is quite old, but I actually think that adds to the charm, because it's like she's like your nana, telling you how it is. So yeah, go check that out. But I was listening to some Claire Weeks stuff, and she was speaking about fatigue and the tiredness that occurs when we deal with an extended period of panic and anxiety. And she was talking about the tiredness that comes on physically, so the fatigue of the body. And then she was talking about the emotional fatigue of dealing with panic and anxiety. And then she spoke about the fatigue of the spirit. And I thought this was so cool that she acknowledged this firstly, because I feel like when you seek help from panic and anxiety, you don't often hear a doctor or a specialist saying like, you must be spiritually tired, you know? Like, I don't think I've ever heard someone say that, at least not in that way. And I think it was really useful that she spoke of it in that manner. So you have the physical, you have the emotional, and you have the spiritual. Because it's something that we just tend to leave out of the equation. And I think we've spoken about it a little bit. We've touched on it a few times in the podcast in the sense of the episode that I did on pleasure. And when things don't feel pleasurable anymore, it's kind of the similar thing. But fatigue of the spirit for me, I remember feeling so distinctly, and I still do feel it from time to time. I think we all do. Because when you are dealing with extreme emotions constantly, when you are constantly sort of fighting yourself, even if you're aware that you're fighting yourself and you're trying to be more accommodating to yourself, it's still exhausting. It's exhausting having this sort of contradiction going on inside your body and mind all the time. And it takes so much energy to focus on that and to deal with that and to do things like, you know, going out with friends, putting yourself in situations that deliberately stretch your comfort zone, you know, doing the things that make you panic. It's so hard coming away from that and not feeling spiritually exhausted. As well as, of course, physically and emotionally tired too. But I think what's so rattling about the fatigue of the spirit is that it's kind of where we get lost. It's sort of where we tend to lose our hope. Because physical tiredness, we obviously know why that happens, and we sort of know what to do about it. Like, we generally know I need to rest. You know, emotionally tired, we sort of are these days given a lot of skills to deal with that. And we're all pretty good at kind of knowing how to navigate when we're feeling emotionally overwhelmed and emotionally exhausted and we need some downtime. We know that reaching for tools like meditation and mindfulness and you know, those sort of like resting and going inward times, we know that those things are going to help us. But spiritually tired, we kind of don't know what to do with that. You know, it's hard to know what to do when you feel hopeless and when you feel like you don't have anything left for you in the world. Like, what do you do about that? You know, and especially when you have the other exhaustion, when you're also physically tired and also emotionally tired, when you feel spiritually tired, it's like, I'm just empty. I'm empty of everything. And I can't summon the energy to even exist. You know, even if I wanted to, I couldn't summon the energy to exist. So it's something that I think requires a lot more airtime, a lot more acknowledgement. And so I was having a really big think about what I consider to be helpful for the fatigue of the spirit. And I came up with a few things. So there's 5 things that I think help when we're dealing with this fatigue of the spirit. The first one is to accept it for what it is, which, you know, sounds like a bit of a non-point. But I think we need to just name it and say, I am fatigued spiritually. Like, yes, I'm tired physically. Yes, I'm tired emotionally. Yes, I'm feeling in pain, and I'm feeling dull, and I'm feeling like overwhelmed and over being panicked and you know, anxious. But I'm also starting to feel really detached. I'm starting to like spiritually disassociate because I feel like I just can't do it anymore. And so acknowledging that that is something that can and will happen when you're dealing with so much panic and anxiety helps, even in the sense that we're saying like, yes, that's supposed to be there. Like that is, of course you feel that way. Of course you feel spiritually exhausted because you have given everything you've got, and there's nothing that's sort of invigorating your sense of like purpose and your sense of being here and being able to appreciate the world, because you're working so hard on just being in the world in general. So that's the first thing, really just accepting the fact that it's here and that you are exhausted in that way, and that that's normal and it's okay and it's expected. Which brings me to point 2, and that is to acknowledge that it's going to take time to recover from that. Just like it's going to take you time to recover from being physically tired, you're going to need rest. Just as it's going to take you time to recover from being emotionally tired, you're going to need to go inward and, give yourself a bit of a break from the big emotions for a while and just have a bit of rest in that way. It's also going to take you time to recover from being spiritually fatigued. It's not something that you can snap your fingers and tomorrow you'll feel better. Claire Weeks puts this as, it's not like you're gonna go and do an exposure session. How did she say it? She said, going out and playing cards with the Johnsons, I think is how she put it. Oh, sorry if you can hear that. That's my washing machine banging around. She said, the family thinks that the mum should go and play cards with the Johnsons because it's going to make mum feel better, being out and socialising. But it's not like, it is going to make mum feel better in the long run, but she's not going to come home from that and feel invigorated and say like, oh, that was so much fun. That was just what I needed. With time, yes, if she keeps going and doing that and taking care of herself in other ways, yes, that's going to help. And it's not to say that she shouldn't go and do those things. She should go out and play cards with the Johnsons. But she's not going to come away from it and feel fulfilled and feel, alive and inspired and motivated, because she's got that spiritual exhaustion. She's got that deep, bone deep fatigue. And so just acknowledging that it's going to take time to heal that. It's going to take time to recover from that. And it's not something that one thing is going to fix. So you're going to have to be accepting that things aren't going to feel great straight away. And I actually published a video recently about losing friends when you have anxiety, and when you're dealing with mental illness, it can be challenging to sort of keep up friendships. And someone commented saying, I go out with my friends and I come home exhausted because I've spent the whole time panicking. I'm really paraphrasing. I can't remember exactly what the comment was, but it was like, along those lines. Like I go out with friends and I come away from it feeling shitty, basically, and tired. And I have the same thing, especially when I was housebound and all my friends would come to my house to hang out with me, which was so great. But I would be sitting there hanging out with them, and this is no offense directed towards any of my beautiful friends, but I would be sitting there thinking, I'm not enjoying this, which felt awful because they were my friends, and I was like, why am I not enjoying this? But I was just so tired. I was so tired from like fighting to be in the world and convincing myself to have people come over and to have a good time and to enjoy myself, that when I came to enjoy myself, I wasn't enjoying myself. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, when do I get a break from this? When do I just get to feel okay? And that frustration that comes up is normal and understandable, but you have to remember that it's not going to feel great straight away. It's something that's going to take time. Just think of it as, an injury, like a back injury or a broken bone. It's not going to heal overnight. It's going to need time, and it's not going to feel great for, a little while. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be annoying and irritating and frustrating, and it's going to impact you and your ability for a little while, but it will heal. Time will heal it. And Claire Weeks is a big proponent of, as she says, allowing time to pass. That is always an aspect of healing, is allowing time to pass, knowing that it's going to take time. But knowing that it can be healed, it can be changed. Like, you're not bound to never feeling joy again. You're not bound to feeling this exhaustion for the rest of your life. It is going to change, but it's just that right now you are depleted in every sense of the word, and it's going to take time to recharge. Speaking of recharging, I'm just going to have some coffee. The seal from the inside of my coffee cup is missing, and I'm really nervous every time I lift it that it's going to spill all over my top. It's so hard to keep track of Tupperware bits and pieces. The third point that I wanted to bring up when it comes to the fatigue of the spirit, this is how you start getting yourself back to that place of feeling connected to the world again. And this is to reconnect with awe. Reconnect with your sense of awe. It's funny because you think about the word awe. For those of you who can't understand my Aussie accent, where I'm probably saying awe, it's A-W-E is the word I'm talking about. When we think of the word awe, it's just not something that we relate to anxiety and panic. And when you are somebody who's lived such a long time with anxiety and panic, I would imagine, and I mean, I would know that sense of awe is something that is never really present. Because again, you're spending so much time just fighting to be in the world, just fighting to get through the day, that, your ability to sort of be amazed by things is like not there. Like, it's just not really something you can access when you are living so much in fear, and when you are shrinking, and when you are playing it safe, and when you are trying to be small and just focusing on getting by. You're not open to that sense of wonder, that sense of like, wow, it's completely like on the opposite end of the spectrum. So reconnecting with that is what's going to really help. It's kind of like a really good night's sleep for your spirit. When you reconnect with that sense of awe and that sense of wonder, it's like your spirit goes, oh, like I'm so refreshed, I'm so present, I'm so excited to be here. It took me a while to get to this place. And keep in mind, this is coming from someone who had the experience of being housebound. Like if that's not to say it'll take you a while to get to that point, is what I'm trying to get at. But for me, I spent so many years avoiding and restricting that when I did start to open myself to the world again, it still took me a little while to get to that place of like, wow, because I was not looking around me. I was always looking inside me. I was always scanning internally for what felt wrong, what felt unsafe, what felt not okay. And I just wasn't open to what was happening in the space around me. And it took me a while to learn how to do that, to actually notice what's happening around me and stop being so focused on what's happening inside of me. But when I did start to really like look around me, it was like waking up. Like, it was like, wow, like there's this whole world out here that I really want to be a part of, and I want to explore, and I want to learn more about. And one of those big moments for me was when I traveled to Tasmania for the first time and went on these beautiful hikes around the waterfalls, and just like, I think what's so jarring about it is that when you have been focused for so long on what's happening inside of you and how crazy what's happening inside of you feels, because everyone else around you doesn't seem to be having those big intense feelings that you're happening. So you're so busy looking at like what's happening in my body is so insane and so crazy and so wrong and so like fucked up and just all of those things. And so all your attention is in here. But then when you have that moment of like reconnecting with the world around you and you look and you go, oh my God, like this is beautiful, this is amazing. You also notice that in the world around you, there is also that same fucked upness, that same craziness. Like I remember standing on the edge of literally a cliff face looking out over the water, and I've put this in a lot of like my Instagram reels and things like that. You've probably seen the footage where I'm like looking out over a cliff and going, whoa. And I remember sending the video to my parents and them being like, please get off that cliff. Like that is not safe. But looking at the world around me in that moment and seeing like the waves crashing against the rock and seeing like the drop and like the gnarly trees in the forest around us, and like there was just so much like chaos at the same time as everything being in harmony. I don't know if I'm making a lot of sense, but it was like everything that was happening in nature was kind of mirroring what was happening inside of me, and it was just that I hadn't taken the time to look. I hadn't taken the time to connect the two, and I felt at home when I realized that I was trying to make everything inside of me, like super peaceful and super perfect and super right and like, like manageable. And the world isn't like that. And when I saw that, it really connected with that sense of wonder and that sense of awe and that sense of actually being respectful of what is happening inside of me, like the chaos that happens inside of me, being in wonder of my own human nature when I looked at the nature around me. And so that became a bit of a obsession for me in a way of like exploring the world and seeing all the different landscapes and seeing all the different, crazinesses of the world, of the natural world I'm talking about. And it always made me feel at home, and it always made me feel safe for having so many crazy feelings inside of me all the time. Like I was like, oh, I'm actually not that weird. Like, like the gnarly, dark, messy thoughts inside of me are also mirrored in the trees and the breeze and the lay of the land. Yeah. And then that was when I really started to feel connected to my spirit again and like recharged within myself. Like I felt like I was inspired again and alive again. And just that sense of wonder really, really started to come back into my life, which honestly had felt dead for so long. So if it's available to you, if there's a way that you can get out, and it might take you, 10 different hikes until you find some sense of awe and wonder to connect to. But I really, really recommend getting out in nature in any way that you can, because like I said, I think that it's quite accessible to find that sense of wonder in nature. But whatever you feel called to, whatever makes you feel alive. Maybe it's, investing in a good telescope and looking at the stars at night and the planets and all that kind of thing. Like maybe that for you is what makes you go, wow, holy shit, like there's this whole universe out there. But you've got to find a way to connect to that sense of awe. because that's what wakes up our spirit. That's what makes us feel hopeful and alive and connected. The next point I have, this is a practice that you can do every day, and it's similar to a gratitude practice. I think we've all heard of that thing where, you know, you write down 3 things that you're grateful for today, and that's a great practice. There's nothing wrong with that. I spent years writing down my gratefuls. We do our gratefuls at the dinner table as well with the kids. You know, what are 3 things that you're grateful for today? It's an awesome practice. I love it. But I heard recently a spin on it, and I really, really liked it. And I'm very sorry that I can't remember where I heard it. I think it was Mo Gaudat, potentially, but maybe not. The practice is called What Went Well Today. And so it's similar to the gratitude practice in that you're still thinking about sort of, I guess, the positive things to a degree. But the thing with gratefuls is that it's like you tend to sort of be grateful for the same things. Like whenever I'm writing my gratitude list, I'm like, I'm grateful for my kids and my family and my health. And it's like I feel bad if I don't write those things down, because yes, I am grateful for those, but it kind of gets repetitive, you know? And I feel like then it tends to not mean as much sometimes. I don't know. It's kind of like those gratefuls become a part of the furniture. You know what I'm saying? Whereas the practice of saying what went well today, it's gets you really thinking and considering your day and going back and thinking like, yeah, what did go well today? Like what things happened that I you know, was really excited about, or what things happened that made me smile? What went well today? And the reason that this helps us with the fatigue of the spirit is because I think something that lights up our spirit is that it's like the opposite of everything being a grind. You know, like when we get in that mindset of like everything's a grind, everything's hard, it shouldn't be that way. And it's not that it's that way, but it feels that way. And so when we look at what went well today, we're deliberately focusing our attention on the fact that not everything was hard. Like even if 99% of things were hard and, you know, 99% of us is exhausted and tired, there's that 1% still that was okay and that felt all right. And so that's what we look at. So if you're somebody who does the grateful practice every night, I really want you to try this practice of what went well today. You just need to write 3 things. You can write more if you want to, but 3 things is your minimum every night. You don't even have to write it. You just lie in bed at night and I want you to think of 3 things that went well today. And that is going to be like a rest for your spirit. Think of it that way. It's like medicine for your spirit. Medicine for that fatigue of the spirit. It's going to remind you that there are good things in the world. There is hope in the world. There is wonder left in the world. And I think that's something that's going to be really helpful. And it's going to make you feel less hopeless and less exhausted in the everyday sort of sense. And the disassociated sense, it's gonna help you feel more connected. The last point I have when it comes to the fatigue of the spirit, you have to create. You have to create. I know creativity is something I talk about a lot. It's like the backbone of my life. But it really is for all of us. Like even if you are somebody who says like, you know, I don't have a creative bone in my body, or I'm not creative, or I guarantee you are creative. We are all creative. You really just need to look at kids, like toddlers. Go to a daycare center and look at all the creative shit that toddlers do and the things that they play with and the imagination that they use. We are all creative in our own way. I'm sure if you really consider it, you'll know that there is something about you that is really creative. Whether it's, you know, the way you speak, the way you write, the way you dress, the way you dance, the way you, the way you care for others maybe is quite creative. There will be something, but you have to start really harnessing that power of creation, Because again, that is what's going to make you feel alive. That's what's going to make you feel like you have a place here and you have a sense of purpose here. That's why I write. I write because I have so much darkness in me and so many messy, yucky thoughts that when I write and when I create order out of words, or when I create something beautiful out of words, I feel like a part of me that doesn't get a voice, I feel like it has a way to speak. And I think that's what creation is about, really. It's a way to give those parts of us that feel muted, to give them a way to speak. And if we don't allow that, we really become spiritually numb. We become spiritually dull and spiritually mute. We don't have a way to express ourselves. And it's shitty. It's a shitty way to live, honestly. I think it makes us feel like the world is it is what it is. Like, I think that's when we get in the mindset of like, the world's a crappy place, like life hurts, life is painful, love hurts. It's sort of where we dwell in that like the kind of state. Whereas when we create, it's like, here is a way that I've taken my life and my experience and I've made something of it. I've made something beautiful out of it, or I've made something, messy out of it. I've done something with it, and I have expressed it in a way that like allows me to feel a bit more connected. It's so important to create. One of my favorite examples of someone who's really creative is Victoria. She is one of my Instagram friends from way back. She's a beautiful painter, and I had no idea that she could paint the way she does, but her spirit has just exploded, I feel like, in the last year or so. Like, she's just doing such beautiful things, and it's really beautiful to watch. And I think, just, judging from the outside, which you probably shouldn't do, but, I spent a long time talking to her about anxiety and things like that. And I think both of us felt sort of a sense of, frustration in ways. But when I saw her starting to express herself through her art, it was like she just came alive in this way that she hadn't been allowing herself to be alive. And yeah, it's beautiful to watch. So find your creativity niche, find your way to express, and allow yourself to do that. Even if you think it's not very good, just allow yourself to do it. Allow yourself to play, allow yourself to put something out into the world, and just do it. Like, just express yourself. Again, think of it as medicine for your spirit. It's going to help you feel more alive, more connected, more purposeful. And yeah, that is something that helps a lot with the anxiety and the panic and the dark feelings. I hope you're all doing really well. I will link Claire Weeks in the show notes. So like I said, if you haven't checked out anything by Claire Weeks, please go and check her out. And yeah, I will see you all next time. I hope this episode has helped you to feel like you can get a little bit of rest for your spirit and a little bit of invigoration in your spirit as well. Take care. Thank you for listening to the Us Anxious Folk podcast, the podcast for the chronically overwhelmed, perpetually panicked, anxious folk in all of us. If you would like to find more about me, you can find me on YouTube at Lauren Rose or on Instagram at LaurenR_Rose.